The book, I suppose, came about from a community. I live in the heart of Devon, and I got to know who the old people were, and 3 of them had been to the First World War. One of these old men said, yes, I went when I was 17. He said, I was with the Devon Yeomanry. He said, I was there with horses. And he started talking about his whole experience of being a soldier there, of leaving the land, of the fear that was in his heart every day of his life while he was out there. And that these horses weren't just what you rode to go into action. They became personal to you. They mattered, you know. And then I'm thinking, well, hang on, the men suffered as they suffered. These horses are sentient creatures. They died exactly the same way as the men. Here is an opportunity to tell a story which crosses over the boundaries, the nationalities, the cultures, the divides, the enmities. If I could tell it from the point of view of the horse.
I've been involved with Warhorse for a long time. In 2000, I read the book and was intrigued by it. Liked it so much that I rang Michael up. He's a brilliant storyteller. All of the elements needed to make a great movie were there. And there's no one that I could think that any of us would prefer to have direct this movie than Steven Spielberg.
Welcome to Warhorse. We're really, really happy to be here. And we do this, as you know, traditional toast every movie before the first shot. So I just want to say, let's have a great shoot. Safety first. Humanity to all animals and to each other. Cheers. Cheers. All right, let's get to work.
Right. Let's make a start then. Come on, boy.
When we were down there scouting, I saw all the elements that I was looking for with the thatched roofs and the rock walls and the houses, but none of them actually fit the bill for what we needed, especially because we had to have areas around it for the field to plow. Out in the middle of nowhere, there was an old ruin that had been there for a long, long time. There was a sort of a derelict, partial building that we found that we made into the farmhouse. It's one of those places where the landscape just speaks to you.
Come around on Joey. Here's Joey, and then you see Joey's face as he goes on the other side. If we stay on Joey, kind of 3/4. This movie is as much about the land as it is about the people. They were devoted to the land, even if the land wasn't always devoted to them.
Walk on, Joey! That's it! Not a boy! Walk on! Go on! Walk on! That's it! Good boy!
Come on, Albie! Push on through!
Your livelihood depended on this one crop, and if it's ruined, you know, then what do? You're facing eviction. People were close to the poverty line all the time.
You got it, boy!
Well done, Jeremy. In the part of Albert, I was looking for a complete unknown. There were hundreds of boys that came in to read, and Jeremy was maybe right in the middle of the pack. And then we moved on to see if anybody else could match him, and 4 months later, we quickly came back to Jeremy, realizing that he was the best person for the part.
Okay. Come here, Joe. Come here.
I read the book, I think when I was about 8 or 9 years old, by my mum. So I was aware of the story, and then when I got the call that I got the audition, I went to go and see the play that night before. It's just a beautiful show, and I'd only been out of drama school about a year, really hadn't done anything, so nothing like learning on the job, eh?
And action!
Would you pay for it? How much, Ted Narracott?
I won't tell you a lie, though I would love to.
Warhorse isn't the story of just a boy and a horse. It's the story of so many different people.
Bravo! You reached the top of the hill. Up you go again, boy. You're making a fair time coming down.
Lovely.
Stephen said to me, you know, this is a character who really goes back to the beginning of film, the evil landlord.
You're likelier to lose an eye, Mr. Lyons, if you carry on prating at me how to manage my son, or my plough, or my horse.
I always liked playing bad guys, better than Good Guys. I don't know why, it just seems more interesting. I was glad to sort of have a go at doing that in a different way under the guidance of Stephen.
He'll sort of pass you by, and we'll do this all as you're walking.
He actually directs you as you're acting. He'll direct the thought process during the shot, which I've never had from any director before.
Okay. Keep going. Just keep walking with Peter. That's really good.
Steve will say, well, maybe try it with a smile this time, or maybe do this, or maybe do that. Or could you do this, and could you do it? Stephen's wanting just that little bit bigger, because he's shooting it very much in a John Fordian kind of way. It's all wonderful wide landscapes, human beings. I feel like being sort of small and framed to reflect that the world's a big place and human beings are not as big as they think they are, you know, which Ford was the kind of master of.
And cut! Wow, that was great. That was great.
Now that's a beauty.
Rosa, row!
In the church of Coscoon, there's the monument to the dead of the Great War. You got a real sense of the huge hole that would have left in a small country village.
Sound speed.
Action! All right, let's get started, shall we? Who wants this beautiful creature?
Today is a really special day, because my wife and I are extras. In the movie and in the book, it's the moment when Joey is bought by a drunken farmer who clearly doesn't know how much money he's paying.
11 guineas, sir! From as good a man as any in this town.
And we learn later just what an idiot he's made of himself.
30 guineas to Mr. Ted Narracott.
What have you done, Ted? What have you done?
It was the perfect place for both the purchase of Joey and also a place for those boys blithely going off to war thinking they'd be home by Christmas, which everybody thought when they signed up to fight.
Background around the table and camera.
Last name first, first name, middle name last.
And how much are you charging, sir, for this strong, decent, and very fine animal?
Tom, I saw him in a couple of smaller parts in films and thought he was kind of the reincarnation of Errol Flynn, and thought, wouldn't it be great to have the first person that purchases Joey from the father be this sort of dashing, classic British hero.
Delighted to do business with you, Mr. Narracott.
I got a call from my agent saying, Steven Spielberg wants to meet you. We didn't have to prepare anything, and we sat there and we had a chat. Talked about Peter O'Toole and these kind of things that you talk about. And then we talked about the First World War, and he says to me, do you ride? And I said, actually, funny enough, Stephen, I do. I'm all right at it. He said, just wanted to check and see if you were the real deal, and seems you are, so let's do it. And I was like, I was just stunned.
Here you go, right away.
It's a huge emotional scene when Joey's sold, but actually, in my head, it was very simple. I mean, he's gone and sold his brother, and that's all there is to it.
You can't have him. He's my horse, sir.
I'm sorry.
What's going on? I'm going too. I'm volunteering.
I've got two younger brothers, and I've used them a huge amount in the development of my character. It's just how you would feel if a brother or the person that you love gets taken away.
Do you want to lose the farm rolls?
It's the way you did it.
Hey, Joey. My bonny boy.
So this is the great horse. The horse that made it all happen. The horse actually that wrote the book. Because as you know, the book is told in the first person. So this horse is a book writer. It's as bright as that, aren't you? But I think it was important that there were emblematic shapes on him which were instantly recognizable. When you put the cross on the forehead and the four white feet together, you have the notion that this is a unique horse.
I'm an artist, and some of the people in the art department saw my website and they were deciding the markings of Joey, the lead character, and they asked me if it was something I could help with. And so I produced some mock-ups of how the leg markings and the head marking could look. So when they were happy, they said go down and oversee the markings being put onto the horses with the equine hair and makeup girls.
We've got 8 hero adult Joeys, 2 teenagers, 1 yearling. We've had a foal come in, and they all have to be identical. Their markings have to be the same. They all have to have, obviously, the 4 white socks, the star on the forehead. Each horse is specific to do different actions, so we get a few ready. On average, to get a Joey to look like a hero Joey, we allow 45 minutes. We try and keep our timings to a minimum because we don't want to stress the horse out.
Okay, yeah, very nice. And roll.
The thing of it is, you know, I haven't made a lot of horse movies, and yet I live with horses and have lived with horses for the last 15 years. We kind of live on a little bit of a horse ranch. My daughter and wife ride, and I've gotten to know, you know, how expressive horses really are. And Bobby, our kind of horse whisperer, he and his team literally perform miracles with the horses.
So this is Finder. We flew him out from the States, and he's kind of our multi-purpose horse that we'll have to do some of our trickier liberty kind of work and stuff. It was mind-boggling first to think about it. There were so many different things that they had to do, their interaction with people, and then in a war scenario, you know, it was obviously very difficult for any animal or any person as well.
One horse coming in now.
Everything is obviously is make-believe, but we were very, very conscientious of safety protocols all the time.
The thing that I kept emphasizing from the very outset was that the horses have to be safe, not even a scratch. By the way, it's easy to get a horse to limp. You just put a heavier shoe on the right hoof and the horse does the slower move with the foot that has a weight on it. Very, very safe. So I gave Barbara of the Animal Humane Society complete final cut, so to speak, to pull the plug if she felt any of the horses were in any way in harm's way. Barbara's job was to weigh in her opinion, to be part of the planning of the stunt and to say, yeah, I think this is safe. So we were real collaborators on the movie, Barbara, Bobby, and myself.
My job started 2 months before the actual filming started. I was here for all of the training of each of the animals. Some of them had to be trained to pull, and they're not draft horses at all. They had to be trained, the mechanics, they had to work up their bodies so they could actually develop the muscles that would allow them to pull the heavy weights that they have to without much stress.
There's something really nice about having animals on a set. Most people love animals and the nobility of horses, and having many different kinds of horses on the set was really fantastic.
Good, we got it. There we go. Okay, good. Insight. Roll sound. Sound speed. Marker. And stand by. And background action. Background. Left. 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 Right. Left.
Rick Carter was allowed to build some of his sets on the Wellington estate. Thousands and thousands of beautiful acres in England, and we were able to go there and shoot so much of the picture.
We did not only a cavalry charge there and the training for that, but also we found the French countryside where we built the windmill. We built a German camp there.
We're filming within Stratfield Park, where my family's lived for the last 200 years. It's got some historical resonance, this place, and a great deal of a connection with horses here as well. Copenhagen was a famous charger ridden by the first Duke of Wellington all day at the Battle of Waterloo. Copenhagen was such a strong horse and so much his favourite that as a result he's buried in great splendour here on the other side of the house.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Still, not a patch on my top form.
I had seen Benedict on British television before and really sought him out.
It was one of those magical moments. I got this call to go to a room and read the script. It immediately came off the page. It's such a potent bit of screenwriting. And I thought, this is a wonderful part. This is a really wonderful part. The first point of call was to try and become a good enough horseman to do what was required in the film.
What you two have bottled out.
As if. Stuart is the soldier, the disciplinarian, and I think Waverley has got such a sort of irreverence to him and a sensitivity. But Nichols, I think, has a sense of how awful the war with Germany and northern France is going to be. And I think his way of coping with his own fear is that he draws these beautiful sketches of Joey. I'm not playing just a soldier, I'm playing a soldier who also has an artistic spirit.
Right then, let's see what you two jokers are made of, shall we?
This is what quiet confidence looks like. I'll wait for you two at the Duke of York.
And cut, very good.
I know that all three of us, Ben and Tom and me, we became incredibly attached to the horses that we were riding. And learning to ride for the film was just the greatest privilege I've ever had.
The thing about horses is they can sense fear, they can sense arrogance, they can sense true confidence. In training and all the way through the film, I noticed that whatever I was feeling, the horses would reflect back to me. And when you're slightly nervous, they can sense that. They get excited too.
Draw! Swords! Give! Fight! Charge!
We always expect humans to have character arcs in movies, but we never expect animals to. But even a horse can find something to believe in. And in this case, he finds Topthorn. More than even pitting Nichols and Stuart together, the most important thing for me was getting Topthorn and Joey to meet in a very competitive way.
I think there is also something quite heroic and extraordinary about men riding into battle on horses. It must have been a pretty awesome sight, but I think there is a massive amount of pageantry and pride and pomp and vanity that went with all of that.
I will get it. Of course you will. One more time.
When war was declared, ceremonial uniforms were kind of banished from England. They were no longer worn. Everybody went into khaki. So the idea of the blue in this film is it's a kind of last hurrah for the ceremonial uniforms just on the outbreak of war, so they have one last practice charge in their blue ceremonials.
The officers would have had their clothes made for them to conform to the conventions of their regiments, but they all had different cloths and slightly different colours, and so if you really look closely, there's a lot of detail.
There's an elegance to the costumes. Joanna was saying how they were really gentlemen first and soldiers second.
You see the kind of necessary practice charge, but there's something kind of very British about that, you know. They blithely go into a cavalry charge, you know, never imagining that they could be met by a new form of technology that's going to change warfare forever and render the horse as an implement of war obsolete. So it was very important to contrast both kinds of cavalry charges. One which is sort of a pure kind of social sport, albeit necessary to train the horses, and the other one, deadly serious.
The cavalry charge made me think differently about the whole movie because Stephen had an image in his mind about reeds blowing a little bit of pollen, and out of it come these soldiers that rise up, and now you suddenly see the horses, and now they're going to move from that idyllic backlit image all the way across into the field and then through a camp and then into a dark forest where the slaughter happens. I think that transition is really the beginning of the journey into the darkness.
go. Stand by to shoot.
First time we had them down the bottom of the field there, fully uniformed, all equipped correctly, and looking exactly as they would have on the day. It was, well, sort of a shiver went down my spine, really, because having spent so long studying it in books, to have it brought to life in front of me was just fantastic.
On to walk! Walk! March!
I mean, the sad thing is that the outcome of it was so often so tragic, but to be a participant in it, you read in the memoirs, they say that it was the greatest thrill around.
Cavalry charge was incredible. The horses were so excited to run. They had sometimes a hard time stopping them because they were enjoying the run together as a giant herd. It was beautiful.
Let's reset. Reset safety, boys. Don't walk in front of the horses.
First time, I was so breathless with excitement, I nearly fell off the horse. I saw stars in front of my eyes and I thought I was going to faint. And the second time, a bit more control, still as giddy with excitement. The third time, I was an emotional wreck. I had to really try hard not to cry.
Rolling.
Steady.
Yes.
Some away, Benedict.
Forward to walk. Walk. Forward to canter.
We make movies primarily just with one camera. In this case, the camera was mounted to a car with a gyroscopic arm, and we were following on that arm as the cavalry was approaching the German encampment.
Okay, Rob, I want to take this arm and go in the middle of all the tents, and I'd like to be able to run down some of the German stuntmen. So they're all running away, looking back over their shoulders, and we just head toward them. I wanted the stunt people, I wanted the Humane Society, I wanted the horse trainers to be able to look at pre-visualizations of these entire scenes and say, impossible, not safe, yes, we can do that, we can do a version of that, that's not going to work. So that's why I did so much previs on this film.
Once we got on the ground, we employed more than one camera. I think we employed 3 cameras simply because we wanted to get as much coverage and as much of the sense of action as the cavalry is going to the German encampment.
And speed. Speed marker. Action.
We talked about trying to always come up with something a little bit different rather than just the normal somebody galloping through and stabbing and slashing them with swords. We had horses jumping over tents, ripping through tents.
Action! Got it? Got it?
We had all these quick releases and bungee rigs inside tents, so as the horse run past it, we collapsed the tent in the right direction. And made some breakaway, really lightweight tables and chairs up, which the horses did actually run through. They were made from foam, didn't hurt them at all.
It felt like doing an old-fashioned movie, you know. Stephen would start showing us sort of great cavalry charge sequences from famous films like Dr. Zhivago. And at one point, Kathleen Kennedy, the producer, just leaned over to me and went, "All those films took a year to make."
All the guns worked for real. Obviously, they fired blanks. A lot of things from the First World War now are becoming collector's items, and people are quite loath to let them go. We eventually found dealers and collectors and museums that would let us borrow these things.